Hi friends, my name is Megan and welcome to episode 81 of A Knotty Mess Knitting Podcast. We have so much to discuss this week. I had a double long weekend because I said last week I filmed on the 13th and we were supposed to go to Portland, so I had taken the 14th off, and Mike and I just decided to keep the day off. We both have time. And we actually got some chores done, and because he's the best Valentine's ever, he went to a couple of yarn stores with me. So we have some of that to discuss in the acquisition section. But then I had President's Day off, and he did not. So I did some baby time. My mom and I split some time, but I got a lot of time to also get more house chores done and knitting. So I had no finished objects last week, and we have tons to talk about this week. I was close for a lot of these, and I did not at the time have very much on my needles. I think I had 4 projects. So I finished 4 projects. Not all of the ones that were just on the needles last week. That's fun, right? And then I cast some extra things on. So we have some fun things to talk about. I just also want to say hi. For anyone who's new, I don't honestly know how often new people show up here, but I don't want you to be confused. This is a knitting diary podcast where I talk about all the things that I'm working on, that I've made, always what I'm wearing, even if it's an old project, and sometimes life things. I spin, I do crochet. In the last year, I've had a crochet project on a hook, not the needles, as a whip though for, maybe 60% of the time. So it's not infrequent. There's just not usually a lot of them. And I cross stitch, though we only talk about that once a month-ish because I'm so slow and that is okay. And yeah, I love to buy yarn. I like to gather it. I like to plan for it. That's something we'll talk about also next week. So let's move on. And I'm a mom and I'm a wife and all the kinds of things. Let's just go this week. I've got things to discuss. I am going to start like we do every episode with what I'm wearing. Today it is a newly finished object. You have not seen this before. You have seen it on the needles. It was a lot done last week. Yeah, a lot done. So this is the Traveler by Andrea Mowry. She doesn't have a distinction between the hoodie or the crew neck because they're both in the same pattern. So it's just called the Traveler. There's a whole series of Traveler things. I do kind of want to make the shawl or maybe the cowl. I think I might have the cowl pattern actually. So maybe I'll make the cowl, and I'd like to do that with hand spun. And it's one, I think the cowl maybe has a preferred weight, but the shawl could be any weight. It's you could do sport or you could do fingering. You could even do DK. It's just maybe to dimensions or something. But I have some kind of plain colored merino that is something I had thought about for the Traveler at some point. Anyway, the actual stitch pattern of the Traveler is just purl bumps, right? So it's a 5-row repeat. You do 3 knits and 2 purls and 3 knits and 2 purls, right? And that makes this the ridging. And so all the patterns borrow that same texture, and that's why there's a series of them. This hoodie is, as you watched me make it, but if you don't remember, because it started a long time ago, I did cast this on in October. This is a friend knit, so not all, but a lot of my knitting group here in Seattle, which is just a group of friends, we call ourselves Pacific Knit West. We are most of us are knitting this or have knitted in the process, along with our Bay Area friends. And so maybe there's 11 or 12 of us making this in total, something like that. And Emily and Maya are spinning, and I think maybe Sharon is spinning, though I don't know if she decided to just buy yarn for it. Spinning for it. Okay, so that's really ambitious. And I think this is a great pattern for a spin. And maybe I would do the non-hoodie version because I do think it would be cute as just a sweater in the future. It's just put it in the back pocket. You can use this one again. Anyway, it is bottom up. You cast on, you do a couple inches of ribbing, and then you get into the pattern. It is quite pleasant to do in the round. I don't know if I've ever talked about this. I'll show you more when we stand up. There's like a little sort of side seamy here. That's mostly because when you're going to change on one of the sides and you'll get sort of an awkward lift if you don't have something breaking up. Ozetta does the same thing with the clay pattern, which also has purl ridges. Smart way to do this. And then you split for front and back, and you do add stitches so you can see that there is kind of like a L to give more of a drop appearance without as much volume in the body. Love this. Love the fit. This is the first time doing it for myself in a pattern from Andrea Mowry. She's the only person I can think of off the top of my head that does this frequently in her patterns for drop shoulders. And I have made a sample and a gift knit that uses this, uses that technique in her patterns. And I really like it. It is a smart way too. Even for top down things, you could just cast off some stitches and do something similar if you wanted less body volume. Like, it's just a smart way to do that, where you get this heavier drop look on your shoulder without so much body. Okay. Then I did the hood first. I think per pattern you should do sleeves first and then the hood, but I do think the hood affects like the weight of where it sits for sleeves. And then I did sleeves and I finished those last week. I think I had like one and a little bit done, or most of one and some of the other one done, and I finished those. I did block it, and then I put on cuffs, and I did not block the cuffs because who cares? I'm not going to do that. And I was happy with it. They're a tiny bit longer than I like originally planned, but I think like with how they sit, like that's pretty comfy. And I did make a couple of modifications, which we'll talk about either while I'm standing or when I sit back down, and we'll go over measurements and we'll go over yarn usage when I sit back down. But let me show you what it looks like. Okay. Here's most of my head version. I don't have a very deep room, so this is about as much space as I can give myself, but, I love it. Okay. Some modifications I made. Really, I didn't make that many. So I did add length. So I think you're only supposed to knit to like 7 inches total. And then you know that this is going to block out because this is a very scrunchy fabric. And you can block this even more than this, right? Like I could give myself more length and like try to get it to lay flatter, but I wanted it to have some of the natural like elasticity of the pattern. But I did add like maybe 1.5 inches, maybe a little bit more than that pre-blocking. And then I gave myself a little bit extra room. Then I didn't make any modifications to the hood. I did make a modification, and I didn't make any to the top and front, like how the design is, how the depth is. This is one of the, not only, but one of the patterns that Andrea Mowry actually gives you a good amount of sleeve space because it is like a sweatshirty feel. If you don't know this, she often makes kind of small bicep circumferences, and as a larger armed human, that's a little bit annoying. So I have to adjust that sometimes, just go up a size, pick up more stitches, add some extra things, but that's okay. So I picked up sleeves per pattern, did 2 pattern, and then I thought I might need a little extra space. Like I probably only added this much. Like I could have just taken that away and then it would have sat with less, scrunch. But I added a couple of repeats and did a more rapid, did more frequent decreases to have less cuff stitches, because I thought how the cuffs were, they would be a little bit big. I mean, it was like, I don't know if I went down 4 or 8 stitches, but enough that like this is perfect for me. And more than this would have been maybe a little bit annoying. I maybe would have been fine with it, but I think this is like a more, fitted sweatshirt cuff. I just like it. Anyway. And again, I didn't block these. I could give myself a little bit more room if I block them, but I like it to be tighter. And yeah, I actually don't mind that there's extra fabric. I think that that's pretty cute. So it's fine. Here we are. I did make, well, I'll do the size when I sat down, but I did make a size 4 and it's 50 inches. So there is ease here and it's enough ease. And I think if it had like plus the sleeve ease, like, if this really truly was a straight square, it would be too big. It would feel like I'm drowning a little bit. I think this is like the perfect amount of sweatshirty for me. Yeah, it's like, it's loose and my belly button is here. So I've got like the whole, 2 inches of cuff or 2 inches of hem below it. And like my full hip is here. So really most pants I'm wearing are going to be higher than my belly button anyway. So like this is a really good amount of length. It's very sweatshirty. I guess I should show you, because the back is so cute. How the hood sits is just the cutest. And that's like one of the things I like the most. I'm going to put the hood on and show you from the front and back. I don't love the hood up. Just telling you now. Okay. So here is the hood up, and I have a lot of hair right now, so there's that. But it's kind of like an odd, I mean, it's okay. It's fine. I just don't know that I'd wear it up very often. Let me bend down and show you the back too. So that's what it looks like in the back. I mean, it's fine. I just, I think it's really cute when it's down because it sits like a perfect little semicircle. And I'd probably wear it down more often, but I can wear it up. That's a thing. Let's sit down and talk about measurements and stuff. And I'll put up the picture like I normally do of me wearing this now that I've taken pictures outside, etc. But, and I'll do that actually after this episode, but they'll magically appear here. Thanks, editing. I made a size 4, supposed to be 50 inches. I measured it 50 inches. This one I was really on gauge. I used the recommended needle, which was 3.75. You use 3.25 for the ribbing, and then part of your hood piece you use a 3.5. So there's a lot of needles involved in this, but you know, all close to size. Then I weighed my yarn, etc., and I weighed the final knit, and this is 5.6 skeins. So I was pretty nervous because I think her recommended yardage is like just around 2,000 for a size 4. It's like 6 whole skeins. I didn't end up using 6 whole skeins. She does always bake in a little bit of buffer, but you're like, okay, but if my, you know, if my knitting is a little off, like it just, you know, it does, it can be worrisome. And this, it's not to say I couldn't get more of this yarn, but I got this from D-Stash and I think it had been around for a while. So I probably wouldn't have gotten like a dye lot that was the same, which would have been fine if I needed like cuffs or whatever. But because this is bottom up, it's not like you can redo the hem in it. It's like, I just didn't want to have a different color going on. Anyway, I ended up being totally fine. So I still have half a ball left over of yarn. This is all the measurements after blocking. So 50-inch bust from underarm to hem is 11 inches. And again, remember, these underarms are a little bit baggier than normal. So the full body is 20.5 inches, which is like pretty normal, regular for me for a sweater. And there is, when you're wearing it, I feel like there's a little bit more drape than just laying on the ground because of gravity with this like accordion style stitch. The total arm length is 18 inches, which is a little bit long for me. And I measured from the armpit, not just from here. The upper arm circumference, which I measured right at the drop instead of right at the tops here, so it's just a little bit lower, is 15 inches. So I think right at the drop, it's a little closer to 16, or even a little bit more than that. And then the cuff unstretched is 6.5 inches. That's all the things I measured. So, and like I wrote the hood to pattern. I don't know how big it is. It's a weird thing to measure. So, and I have no comparison. So I'm not going to put that measurement in here, but, yeah, I did use the Cordsmith to make my, lovely eye cords. I did use Yarnaceous, like natural color of her Salta fingering, which is 8515, I think, super rush merino and nylon, and I held it double and used the original size. I just, you know, ended both ends, and then I put a little knot in just because that looks more like sweatshirty to me. I've seen some people get those like rubber tips and put those on also, which is great. Sounds a little bit annoying. I'm not going to do it right now, maybe in the future. And let's see. Oh, so because I used 5.6 skeins of yarn, I actually ended up using an entire, it's 1,836 yards. And this yarn we've talked about before. Okay, so this is Queensland Collection Rainbow Beach. It is 100% superwash Australian wool, whatever kind of sheep that is. And it is a sport weight, true sport weight. So it's 328 yards for 100 grams. And it is very It's interesting because it is like natural, like non-superwash feeling. It's like grippier than a regular superwash, or like, you know, superwashes that are hand dyed. But it's also not, like, even while working with it, not quite as felty as like a non-superwash can be. There were a couple of spaces, I don't really talk about this, where especially because I was TV knitting this, if I wasn't paying attention, sometimes because I Portuguese purl, it's a little bit easier to do, I think, than regular purling. But anyway, just with the ridges and going back and forth with knits and purls, there were a couple of times where I would catch and accidentally like knit the purl together with the stitch below, so it just makes like a collapsed looking purl stitch. So you could see it in the front, and I was like, okay. So I would go back and like fix it if I saw it a couple rows later. And so when you unknit that piece and then knit it back up, like it's got that same like grippiness that a non-superwash does, but non-superwash, even when you tend to fix like small amounts, like seems to like felt a little bit more than this did. So I don't know, it's like a weird in-between thing. I feel like you need to feel this. I know you can get Queensland collection yarns at some local yarn stores. I do think it's going to be like kind of a workhorse yarn. Like I do feel like because it's got that like grippiness, it's going to last a long time and it's not going to lose its shape in this, which is great. What I would much prefer spending so much time knitting it. Overall, my measurements are really close to on pattern for all the things. And I'm really pleased with it. I love the color. This color is called Boysenberry. It's just so fun. And it's like very summery, and it is a light sweater. Like I'm in February today, and I will certainly wear it in my office all day and I'll be just fine temperature wise. But I think I could get through, like I could wear this all the way through summer here. Like we have not a very hot summer, and like, you know, sometimes in the morning or the evenings it gets pretty chilly, and this is like a summer sweatshirt in my mind, plus all the time sweatshirt. I'm gonna live in this. I'm excited. Okay, let's move on. I have so many other finished objects, but this was the biggest one for this week. So let's talk about the other one that was closest to being finished last week, which is kind of cast on order too. This is my These Days blanket, which is patterned by Mary Lee, who is 5410 Studios on Instagram and, you know, on Ravelry and stuff. It is a baby blanket for one of my dear friends. Her baby's already here. She's like 8 months old, but when we actually see her, I'll be able to gift her this blanket. It's so squishy. I did add length. You know what I did is I stretched it when I measured it like on the floor, like over the weekend, like while I was working on it. And I was like, if I stretch it out to truly be the 30 inches across, which is how I'll block it, like I do need a little more length. And I was like, oh, then a little bit more, then a little bit more. And then let me show you. I got pretty dang close to the end of the ball of yarn. I measured out how much I would need to finish the ribbing, and I was like, you know what, there's only maybe one more repeat in here. So I did it, and this is how much yarn I have left over. This is 2 grams of yarn. It was not enough to make a whole other pass through, and that's pretty dang good. I love to have no yarn left over. When I get itty bitty scraps like this, it really depends. Sometimes I'll keep them in with scraps, and sometimes these will go straight into my like cut scraps, which I don't have any plans for right now. I know you can collect cut scraps and send them to like Hedgehog Fibers, and that's what they make their Tweety yarn out of. And then you can get like a discount back, but you have to like send kind of a lot for it to be worth it. Or I have beautiful friends with blending boards and or drum carders where I could cut up and make my own little funfetti. This is not a right now problem. I'm just letting you know. I'm counting this as all yarn being gone on the tracker. So yeah, so we're blocked, we're weighed, we're measured, we're all the things. I measured this at just over, so the pattern was supposed to be 30 by 34, and this is like a little bit closer to 36 done, and when it's like laid flat on the ground. This is really hard to lay flat and get that measurement because it's so stretchy. So if you lay it down and you just stretch it a little bit, it like will just be like, oh, it's now 50 inches, and you're like, nope, that's not how it'll actually be. It's so nice. Like, I love it. The yarn was really nice and soft. Okay, so this is the small size. So there's a crib size, which is one smaller. This is the small size. So again, 30 by 34. It's, it calls for worsted weight yarn, but it does use maybe like Lion Brand. Woolies is one of the ones, and that's only a little bit thicker than this. That's like more like a light worsted. This is Lobby and Amy Merino DK, which is I think 250 yards for 115 grams, and in the colorway Gyupta, and it was like a special colorway, so you also can't get that one everywhere. And it's got that lovely peachy, pinky, minty rainbow speckles, but like light rainbows. They're not really dark. There's some blue, yellow, pink in there for the speckles. Like I guess there's a little bit of green too where it breaks. Anyway, it's so lovely and I'm really glad it's done. I don't know, should I hold it up for you like one more time to show you the whole thing? It's really cute. I will say tragedy struck on Saturday morning, like not tragedy, yarn tragedy, you guys, where I had been working on it and just not paying attention, and I did something like on Saturday morning. I noticed I had done part of the repeat, like I added an extra row, which then actually like flipped how the motif was, because then I was like following the wrong, I was just looking at the row before, not like down below. So I had to rip out maybe like 2 squares, which was not a big tragedy. I mean, like 2 squares, so it was like 12 rows, and then reknit that. But I was pretty close to being done at that point, and I was like, oh, woof. So that was a little wee bit annoying, but what are you gonna do? It's fine. And now it is done, and it is gorgeous, and it's gonna go to the little baby, and she's gonna love it and squish on it and hopefully have it in her big girl bed whenever that happens for them in 3 years. And it'll be so nice. So done. That's my second baby blanket of the year. I have one more coming, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. 20 minutes, whatever. In this episode we'll talk about it, and yeah, I'm just really excited. I will say also, the Ninja Turtle blanket left my house yesterday. My friend came over. We chatted for like an hour about our kids, and he hung out while Theo was having lunch, and it was, yeah, really great. So I'm really excited. His wife is due like any day now, and now they have their baby blanket. Okay, next thing that I finished was one I didn't expect or need to finish, but I just got the finishing energy, right? You guys, we are full of finishing energy this week, and it was a great weekend. Here, my friends, is the Ribblesdale Vest. It's done. Isn't it so cute? I love it. I love it. Buttons are on. It's blocked. It's washed. It's done. This will go out in the mail hopefully this weekend, if not early next week, maybe Monday, to my dear bestie who lives in Pennsylvania. And I'm so excited for her to have this. It is, this is a pattern by Lily Kate France, who is Lily Kate Makes on Instagram. I think she's an incredible designer. She's a real eye for the little things that lead to like a super clean looking finished object. Sometimes those things are more annoying. Calm down, cardigan. But we love the outcome, so worth it. This one was a really rewarding and quick knit. I don't know that it's my style for me to have this. Like, I just don't know that I would wear it. But I love it. I'd be tempted to make one for myself in the future. So this one is a worsted weight pattern, and you do knit bottom up. So you start with the ribbing. You do some decreases because brioche has a much larger gauge. Then you knit body. You separate, like I talked about last week. You're doing one side, then the back, then the other side. Look at that neckline. It's gorgeous. Like, look how this lays with the decreases and everything right here at the top. It's really beautiful. And the decreases here, like, just, they're flawless. I mean, the details, it's so, so pretty. And on the front too, obviously, as we get to the neckline, like you can see that you have this like whole brioche decrease line here. So when you pick up, and the sides are not like equivalent for how you end each row, like the wrong side versus the right side. So when you pick up though, you have to just be conscious, because you pick up on the side that has like sort of the extra part of the stitch first, that you're grabbing it so you only see this row. And then on this side, you really only have the option to show this row, right? So like for me, sometimes I have to think about what that's going to look like on both sides, because you do, you know, it's two different ways. Anywho, it ended up being pretty easy to do. Like I said last week, I had everything, but I think I had the body connected. So I just had to do the armholes, which, as I said last week, the armholes were looking really pretty as they were, but it is an I-cord pickup. And then you don't pick up quite every stitch. It's almost every stitch, because I did this to pattern. So it would have, you know, it was exactly as she wrote it. So if it was every stitch, it would have been the right number, but it's almost every stitch. So you do that. I did the I-cords with needles because I didn't want the cordsmith to pull this too tight, and like it's harder to affect the gauge with the cordsmith. And also because this is a single ply, like I didn't want to pull it as much. I think that you have a little less tension when you're doing it on needles also. Did the button band. Anyway, it's like 8 rows. So super, super quick. Once you pick it up, which is the most annoying part, you just like knit back and forth. You do a little bit of a miter stitch here. So you give the collar, you know, like keeps the V much more cleanly. Yeah. And that's it. And then you just like finish it off. I did a true tubular bind off. Oh, that's what I did. Cause I was like, I don't know how much the I-cord. So I picked up, I knit until the tubular bind off. And she doesn't have any instructions on like do the 2-step tubular bind off, or if it's just a sew and bind off. I looked really close at her sample pictures in the pattern, and I was convinced that this was a true tubular bind off. And I thought that would look nicer anyway, but I didn't have a lot of yarn left, and I was like, I don't actually know like how much an I-cord takes, so I'm gonna do, and I pulled from the center of the ball, because I always do an outside pull. So I pulled from the center because it was open, and I did the I-cords on both sides. After I did the first one, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be totally fine, but let me just finish the second side. And then I went through and did the 2-step tubular bind off. So it's a true tubular bind off here. You can see the edging. It just looks so clean and nice. And then I put buttons on, and I didn't really showcase these. My mom, I've said this before, every time I do cardigans or anything else, between my mom and I, we have 1,000 buttons in this house, and that's not really an exaggeration. We have a ton of buttons. There used to be a fabric store in the small town that we lived in, and it was like they had actual fabric and stuff, but they also had tons of notions. And so like this was in 1999 or something like this. Like this was in the 90s. They went out of business, and they were doing like, you could get a bucket of buttons, like a full on bucket for like $2 or something like that. So we have a ton of vintage buttons in our house, lots of plastic ones. We have a lot that are the same kind. And then these are like real shell mother of pearl buttons. And I will say the one thing I did, not per pattern, is that I sewed these on. This is the wrong side with a small plastic button, just because this is a pretty, you know, open gauge worsted weight thing. And I didn't want the buttons to pull too much on the fabric. And when you have like an anchor button in the back, then the fabric itself is more protected. So, but yeah, let me show you one of these buttons. On the back side, you can kind of see there that is like an actual shell, like a little mother of pearl. So I decided to use the shiny side, and I put this to a vote on one of my Instagram chats with friends, because I was kind of undecided between this and like, I had a gray and a white button also. And I wanted something that like adds to it, but doesn't like attract too much, right? And I thought this was my top choice, and it's what 2 out of 3 people voted for. And so that is what I went with. Okay. Ribblesdale Vest, done and dusted. Oh, this is a size 3 for, I think it's 33 inches across. The largest part of the chest, I blocked this to pattern measurements, so I don't even have them all in Ravelry yet. Maybe I'll do that and just add them in, but it's 33 inches across. That's what I did. I think like the armhole's about 9 inches. She doesn't have any measurement for like the depth of the V, I don't think. The waist is a little bit smaller, and you can kind of tell that here. I didn't block out the ribbing a lot because it's supposed to be like 29.5 at the waist. And I think this is probably closer to like 31 versus 33. So I didn't get it quite as cinched in at the bottom, which is fine. And then maybe there's like the total length. But again, I did this on a pattern, so it was like as pattern measurements. Let's see. Oh, yarn wise though, I used 2.17 skeins. So, and this is Malabrigo worsted, which is their non-superwash, single ply, 100% merino. And it's 210 yards, I think, for 100 grams. And so, this is, 455 yards. And I think the pattern recommended like just under 500, which is why I knew that this, or I hoped that this was the right amount. I've never had a problem with Lily Kate patterns being incorrect on measurements. Not that I've made a ton of them, or like on yardage estimates, but you know, you just get worried sometimes. So this one is good. And then the color is water green, which should look familiar because this is what I used for my Belle mullet, which now I have a matching knit with my best friend. That's so exciting. I have a new pair of mittens. Okay, so let's talk about this. I signed up for this test knit a couple of weeks ago. And I was chosen. I didn't say anything on the podcast because I was waiting for the pattern, and then it's a pretty short timeline. I think this is only 2 weeks to get these done, but these are bulky weight mittens. For adults or kids, I think the smallest is like a child, adult, extra small, which like kid hands do, or they're kind of like their feet, like they grow faster than like a lot of parts of them. I'm gonna put them on for you because they're so cute. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, the one annoying thing about these is like, and maybe that's mittens in general, there is a left and a right, and it's just because the thumb gusset is, the thumb is like put in one stitch inside of halfway, but when you're looking at them and putting them on, you're like, these are almost identical. It's a little bit hard to tell. Maybe if I wear them more, it'll like be a little more distinct. I might honestly stitch like a little L in one of them. I only need it to do for one of them, so I'll know. But here are my mittens. Aren't they so cute? Do you love them? I love them. I'm so happy about them. They are really adorable, and they are really, really fast to make. So, well, let's look at the colors again, because maybe like look at them a second. Tell me what yarn I used. Do you know? People who watch podcasts a lot. If you guessed it, and oh, sorry, and you can kind of see the cuff here. The cuff is in a different yarn. These are a bulky weight mitten, and one of the options that Claire gave for getting to the bulky weight is and she made these to go with either the Treehouse collection or Paisley Knits collection for the, I don't know what Paisley Knits is calling it, but Treehouse is calling it like Balboa, which is nearly the same as the Woolfolk bulky boucle that I have. Okay, so if you want a bulky boucle and you like those colors, both of them have a collection right now. They're up until I think Sunday, both of them. Gorgeous colors. Okay, but you can make a mitten out of them, or you can use DK boucle that you have and hold it double. Well, I had plenty from my long dog knit, the Helms Deep, to just hold double, but I had not that much of To the Stars Who Listen from my superlative last year, or 2023, and I said to myself, I'm going to swatch and see if they go well together, because there is some teal in the Battle for Helms Deep, which is the long dog one, which is the blue, and it's like variegated and very fun, and I could have held it together and it still would have been really gorgeous. And honestly, I have enough that I could probably do another pair for myself and have 2 of them. I don't really need 2 mittens because I wear I do wear gloves a lot to walk the dog, and I'd be happy to just wear mittens instead. But anywho, I would just having this thought, and I told Claire right after she put the launch out for the test knit that I was like, I was looking up bulky boucle mittens the day before she put out the thing. We're always on the same page. Her and I, great minds. So I just held it together. I did this swatch at knit night on Monday, and everyone was like, yes, do them together. That's super fun. I did have a dark blue I could have used instead if I just wanted the Helm's Deep, but this is Cashmere DK, also in the To the Stars Who Listen, which I don't have a lot of, and was just enough to make these cuffs, and I have like a little bit more left over from when I did my superlative. So now I have these gorgeous, very unique tealy blue bulky mittens. Okay, let's talk about the pattern a little bit. Oh gosh, I didn't do this for any of the patterns today, but let me do it for this one, and then we'll run through the others. I'll just do them all together. So the way that you knit these is from the cuff. And honestly, I don't know, you could, maybe there's all the kinds of ways to do the mitten, but I held the DK double. She does a German twisted cast on to give yourself a little bit more stretch, which is smart. The cuff is pretty tight for me, and you could make it a little bit looser. There's like a 2 stitches that you add at the very beginning of going into the mitt part that you could use, you know, get your cuff bigger if you have big wrists. I have kind of small wrists for my hand. So, and this is an adult medium, which is like maybe an 8 or 9 inch circumference. Maybe it's a 9 inch circumference. Anyway, it's like not super big. There is a large up to an extra large. Okay. Then you switch to your double boucle or your bulky boucle, and you just knit. Let me pull out just one of them, and you just like knit down. You add some stitches, which she does with the bulky in a pretty clever way that it just like goes really fast. And then you put those stitches on hold here like this, just like a sleeve, and then you knit the rest of it. There's not that many decreases. They happen pretty quickly, but it was like just the right amount for the peak of your hand, like for me. And then you go back and pick up your thumb, and there's not a lot of stitches on your thumb. And I did the thumb in like, I don't know, 7 minutes or something like that for both of them. It was really fast. I think overall, both of these mitts took me around less than 4 hours. I mean, that's 4 hours me like reading kind of slowly to do this. And I was like listening to a book, etc. And quick and easy. You can tell when I hold them apart too. This one does look a tiny bit smaller. It is gauge-wise like pretty similar, but it's like right at the bottom here. Like I was a little bit looser in my first one. This is my second mitt, and I did it 2 days later, and it just must have been more stressed last night. So the beginning of my knit of the boucle is just a little bit tighter there, which it's my left hand, which is actually smaller than my right hand. So it all worked out. It's fine. Okay. That was a lot of time for finished objects, and I do have some whips to talk about, but 4 finished objects this week is pretty incredible, and we should always have 4-day-long weekends. If only. Okay, a pattern review really fast. Do I recommend it? Would I do it again? So, or end yarn. So for the finished things, obviously boucle, I like to knit with boucle. Yes. Holding it double, great way to use up scraps. Would I do it with a bulky? Sure. So yes to yarn. Yes to pattern. It was really, really easy and fast. I would make these for Theo, not right now because that's like the child size, I think would still be too big for her. But, and I don't think Mike would wear these, but like maybe my sister-in-laws would. I don't know. Like I might just use up that boucle yarn to use it up. I also might do a headband with it. So like I'm not going to commit myself right now. But like generally speaking, is it a pattern worth doing again if you want to gift them or have lots of mittens for yourself? Yes. Easy to understand, super quick, super easy, rewarding knit. Okay, we're doing reverse order here. Ribblesdale yarn. Obviously, yes, I like Malabrigo worsted a lot. I don't think it'll last as long as some other yarns that have ply. In this pattern, looks gorgeous in brioche. Love it. The pattern itself, you know I love Lily Kate. This one is not like the Calm Down where it's like I begrudgingly love the pattern. I really do think this pattern is just really excellently made, easy to understand. you know, intuitive for things that I haven't done in a while. She has written out instructions on how to do the decreases though. And that's all pretty easy to, and a lot of these things she also has videos for. So I think her patterns are great. This one is like, if you've done brioche, you could easily do this as one of your first brioche projects because there's just not a lot to it. Like it's pretty easy. And one color brioche is way easier because you have to purl brioche, which is my favorite. Okay, the These Days blanket. Yarn for sure. And again, the Ribblesdale, I don't know that I'd make one for myself. So I don't know if I would make it again, but like if another friend requested that in the future and I was already going to gift them something, like I would say yes, because it's very adorable. This La Bien Amy Merino DK, like a lot of other superwash merino DKs, very soft, very lovely. The colors are super pretty and she has a lot of really pretty colors. So like, yes, I would use it in the future. It is a little bit more expensive unless you get it on really good exchange rate. But if you get it from the US, it's typically like maybe like $5 or $6 more expensive than like a normal DK. Pattern. For sure. This was a really nice and fun and relatively mindless baby blanket. I would also look into other of Mary Lee's blankets in the future for someone who wanted like a simple texture. It's like really nice. She has really nice like classic textures. Not that I couldn't figure them out myself, but you know, the mindless thing. Sometimes it's what I want. Okay, the Traveler hoodie. Yes to the yarn, I think. I want to see how it wears. It's a little bit scratchier than other yarns. So I do think for me, this is like a t-shirt wear. Like maybe it'll wear nicer. And I am wearing a v-neck, so it's touching my chest here and it's not bothering me. I'm not super sensitive though. So if you are sensitive, this may not be the superwash yarn for you. But I like it. The color range is really good for this. And, the pattern, I want to do the crew neck, so I think that speaks for itself. I did feel a little bit like the sleeve island got me almost, but I just powered through so I could get it done, and I'm glad I did, and I'm glad it's off the needles, and I think I'm gonna wear the crap out of it. So that's my reviews on patterns and yarn. Let's talk about what I have on the needles. The only project that went with me throughout the week then, as still a whip, is my Dolan coat. So this is a pattern by Taylor Harris, or Taylor Ann Knits, I think is her Instagram. It'll be up here on the screen. And I got almost to where I wanted to get to this week. Okay, so I have on the needles on hold my right shoulder and the back. And I just kept them on the needles because I had like kind of a long cord in here. And I continued on doing the left front with a new needle. I just started knitting that and that was fine. Okay, so this is your double knit collar. This is the back shaping I did. Here is a place where you can see it, where you kind of see like I have a single stitch in between two markers and you're increasing on both sides every row for a while to create this like line here, and it's just one line and that'll sit like on top of my shoulder. And this is where this is the double knit side. So this is about how long it is minus some back shaping. So you do shaping and then you do just straight across all those rows. Okay, that's the shaping here. Here's that shaping line on your left shoulder. So that's where it'll fit. And then you continue, like you split basically for front and back. So I will do this, and this will be the front that goes down to my sleeve because this will have a cap sleeve. And then be knit in the round. And then I will, you know, when I pick up the back, and this is circular too. So I will do the left, then I will do the back, then I will do the right, and then I will join underneath the armholes again. So I will just create that circle. Okay, so that's how the construction works. And so, yeah, so I have the front and I have, oh gosh, I think from the shoulder seam, so I think that's where I measure, it's supposed to be 9 inches, and this is like maybe 3, so I'm a third of the way there. I only knit on this like two times this week, so I do need to just like pick this up and do some more. I would really love to get the body joined in the next 2 weeks or so and then keep going. And it's really not that many rows. It's more just like sitting down and doing this. Here is what I will talk about. And I didn't talk about this last week, but I would like to share this piece because I want to talk through the construction of doing a double knit collar band that you're doing at the same time as you're knitting the rest of the fabric. In order to do that and keep your tensions even-ish, because I am using the same needle, not a size smaller needle, but double knit is twice as dense because you're only doing like half the stitches each time you pass, right? So when you do a right side row on this, you're doing what she calls like a I don't even know, she calls it something, but it's like a triple pass. So you do your double knit, then you do your double knit back, then you do your double knit again, and then you knit across. Your purl rows, you just purl and then double knit. So it's 2 to 1 once you actually get through it. And so it gives you that double density, but you're getting, it's the only way to do that, right? Like you can't do a double knit in and then a double knit, then what else are you going to do, right? You have to do a double knit back to be able to have your fully 2 passes per each row of body. Okay, if that makes sense. I'm not changing needles or anything. I'm just doing that triple pass on each knit side. And it is keeping it like the same. Otherwise, if you didn't do that, it would be half as often and you would just have this like shawl collar that would just like, you know, like be so scrunched in, like it would not work at all. So that's a smart way to do this. I've never done a double knit at the same time that I'm doing the rest of the body before. So I thought that was really clever. This will be an open coat. There's no buttons or anything. So that's also nice because you don't have to worry about button bands on either, or like buttonholes on either side. You just go. But you can see the density difference a little bit between those two parts of the fabric. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the knit so far. This boucle catches as much as a regular boucle. I wouldn't say it's more, it's not less. It is softer, and I brought this to knit night just so everyone could feel it, and they were like, oh wow. Like, and Emily was working on her Northwoods V-neck, which is the knit that we did for just like our boucle friends knit. Mine is done, right? But she was working on hers at knit night, and she was like feeling the tune. She was like, wow, like the fabric feels, this is much softer. Reminder, this is gifted to me from Woolfolk to do this like as a preview knit while everyone's doing their knit along. And yeah, and it's really nice. This is 100% wool. It is not superwash. It is really soft. Yeah, double corded center for like just a floofier boucle. I think it's 100 and let me look, 31 yards. Yeah, for 100 grams. So it's a bulky. And just like, yeah, the density, it's great. It's very fluffy. So that's where we are. Not super far, definitely further than where we were because I split for the front and back, but I've got a ways to go. And I think I'll just maybe make this like the other, like one of my 2 knits that I try to give the most time to this week. It's not a great one for my desk because I do have to pay attention to what's going on, even though I'm not doing any increases or anything. It's just like with the double knit, I have to like make sure I did all 3 passes. It's pretty easy to tell if you did it or not. Yeah. Okay. I cast on 2 new things. So I cast on obviously the snow bunnies, and then I cast on finally my February sock. This is my February sock for my mother-in-law. It's going to be a tiny bit big on her because this is a new to me pattern, and I think I just added like 3 rows too many. Like just, it's going to be a little bit too big for her. But like I told you last week, I am doing sort of a mishmash pattern. I don't know what I'll call it on the title because I haven't made it yet, but the mishmash of the Summerlee, and these are, I'm going to call it still, the designer is Summerlee Knits. Or Summerlee from Summerlee Knits, because I just took 2 parts of recipes from her sock project book, which is really the purpose of this. The purpose of that book is to give you tips on techniques and basic recipes that you can mix and match and do other things. She does also have some full-on patterns in there. There's like a lot of patterns in there. There's like a couple with texture, a couple with cables, a couple with stripes that you could do as written, or you can, you know, mix and match. So this is a size adult large. It is a 72 stitch recipe. It's on 2.25 millimeter needles, which is my preferred sock needle. That's just like the density I like for socks. And I did a mashup of the Flegel, toe up Flegel heel, and the 2x2 rib, because she does a Flegel heel with no texture. and I really like it. It's fun in this texture. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I did do one thing different than her recipe too for the 2x2 is that because the way she writes her 2x2 is a cuff down, and she just starts knit 2, purl 2, and she just says, you know, establish a 2x2 ribbing pattern essentially. But even her recipe, you would have your underside of your sock is just knit, which is what I ended up doing too. And if you do that, then your rib is just like slightly off center, and it doesn't matter. No one would ever notice, but I will notice. And even though I'm not keeping these socks, I was like, that's annoying to me. So instead I broke it up and I started with a knit 1 and then purl 2 across, and then you end with a purl 2 and a knit 1. So then it's more symmetrical. Don't ask, not necessary, but I did it. And then as you can see, I did my Fleegle heel. Fleegle heels are weird. Let's talk about what it is, because this is my first time. I do want to make one for myself, so I will keep right up this recipe and maybe just like what I did exactly on the page, so I can go back and look at it for myself. As in, like, I'll put number of rows and stuff, and I might even subtract like 1 or 2 so I know what I want to do. But essentially you make like a triangle pocket. Okay, so I love a toe up heel flap and gusset because you don't have to pick up all those side stitches of the gusset. It just, you do them a different way. I love that. I think it's genius. I have a great time when I do them. I think Ariel just did one maybe for the first time for her February socks too, the heel flap and gusset toe up, and she's like also like, wow, that was so cool, and I love it. I still don't know if toe up is my preferred. I like both ways. I like to knit socks both. There's mental disadvantages and advantages of both. But what you do is once you get to the designated place, and you know, she gives you some inch measurements, and because these are a gift, that's also why I kind of went based off of, and this, my mother-in-law's the only person, I didn't actually measure her foot, so I was kind of estimating, and she had close to the same size foot, but anyway, what you end up doing is you get to the place and then you start gusset increases, and you do quite a lot of them, more than I thought. So I was like, wow, this is just going forever. So that was like a little bit annoying because the back only grows a ton and then your front stays the same, but you are knitting in the round the whole time. That is nice. You do not have to go, you don't have to go back and forth. Even for this part is the only part you go back and forth, and because it goes really rapidly, like it was just not as annoying. Like heel flap and gusset, sometimes when you get to the gusset part, it just like feels like it's taking forever. Anyway, all this to say, you do a ton of increases, and then you just knit to just past halfway, and you have like a little bit, you start with like 3 stitches and then you go across, and it's the same as like when you do a heel turn. It's just a really long heel turn essentially. But where this sits on your foot is like all the way, this is a cup all the way until the back of your heel, and then this just sits on the back of your heel. So it's a little bit different, I think, fit wise also, and that's why I want to have one for myself, because I want to know if it's like more comfortable than a heel flap and gusset, which is my preferred. I think maybe I have like a larger like instep or something, or a higher instep, that I don't feel like afterthought heels or German short row heels are very comfortable for me. Like they don't fit perfectly. Again, something I could play with the recipe for those, and I should try again now that I've made more heels, because like I did a couple of heel experimentations when I first started and then was like, nope, I like heel flap and gusset, and most of my socks are that, but I'm happy to play, and I have this year to do that. Not just for, I mean, most of these are gift knits, but some of them will be for me. Anyway, fun to do. Then I finished all of those decreases yesterday, and I am now I just established a 2x2 rib here right along the back. And so I will do not a super long cuff for her, but like maybe 3 inches or so. And I might do like 2 inches and then do a 1x1 cuff, like a real true cuff that's 1x1, as like a fun little mix rib thing also, because that'll be easier for me to bind off and all the things. And she's not going to care, so I will do what I want. I am hoping to be done this sock in the next day or 2, and then be able to finish the second sock in February. That's my hope. This is Hickory Lane Fiber Coat yarn, and I don't know if that's like still their company name, but I think so. And it is in the colorway Rockefeller, which is like a Christmas colorway, but it's really fun and pretty, and it's definitely doing some like pulley things. But again, these are socks, and I don't care, and she doesn't care, and it's just like fun, just for fun. Yeah, and it is, yeah, it's got like a lot of, it's a Christmassy theme, but it's pinkish for this beautiful month of February. So I will continue on this journey of socks. Oh, and that I didn't say, but that is like 100% superwash merino, and it's like it's a light fingering, so it's like 490 yards for 100 grams. I like it. It's a nice density actually for socks. Sometimes I like a plump, but I feel like those will be good for her. Okay. I cast on something else, which I'm really excited about. And I kind of did a lot of knitting on it this week, which is also why the Dolan didn't get quite as much. And I don't know that that'll change this week, but I'm going to try to give the Dolan some more attention. This is on super small needles because I am 2 rows away from splitting for sleeves. And by the time it got to like too much for these needles, I was like, I'm so close. I don't care, because I don't want to go back and forth between needles. So you're going to have to look at it really scrunched. I apologize. And this is the front. And I did tell you I was going to cast this on, but I did it, and I did a lot of knitting on it. And that is my Uptown Pullover. It looks itty bitty, but only because it's on small needles. I promise it's totally the right gauge and very much the right size. But how sweet is it? I love it. The color, I love it. I love it. I love it. It's so fun. Okay. So let's talk about the construction a little bit. You cast on fully in the round and join in the round. And then you do short rows, 2, and maybe the whole time. I think you're even the whole time. And one of the things that Tori does for this, which I actually really love, is you can see here is my join. So I joined the yarn at the back so you don't get any kind of weird stuff anywhere else, right? Then you knit half of a row to the front, and that is where your BOR goes. And putting your beginning round marker in the front allows you to do your short row shaping and your increases only on one side. So you do your increases on the right side. You do them here to the other right side. And then you do your first short row and you go back. And then you just go like this, but all your short rows are purl only. And it's so easy. So like if you've ever done another Tori U pattern, she similarly joins in the round for like the Brooklyn Raglan, but she doesn't establish the BOR in the front. And so you do half of your increases, like your right side increases purl, but your left side increases knit, or whatever it is that when you go back and forth. So you're doing, I don't know which is better or worse, but it's just different. And this is a lot easier to do sort of mindlessly for those short rows, because you know that you're going to do them on only the front side, or only on the right side. So really fun. So you do some neck shaping then. So you can see that here, that creates that like a little triangle always. It's quite a lot of them, maybe like 8 or 9. I don't know. It's like several. You just have a couple of stitches in the front, in the very front, that don't have any short rows. So that'll be really nice. I do think you pick this up later and do a I-cord. I think you do an I-cord neckline. And yeah, and then you establish from the very beginning this like really fun, really gorgeous lace texture. And as you can see, it pivots towards the front, and this side also pivots towards the front. So they are not going opposite directions, which I think you would notice that. They are going the same direction, and just so pretty. So that means one side is a knit two together and one side is a SSK. Yeah. And I really love how it looks. It's just like a really fun, like little netting that you create. This is a compound raglan. So you do like some all increases, then just some sleeve increases, then just some body increases. And the body increases are interesting because you have to keep this this netting kind of pattern. So you need some of those extra yarn overs. So you actually do a decrease the next round, and you do like a half increase, half decrease, which was actually really fun to establish. I was like, what is happening? And that's what you do at the end, just before you're ready. So you just do some extra body increases right at the end. It's really lovely. I can't wait to get it onto just split for the body. I'm obviously going to do that this weekend because I can't put this down. I'm having the best time knitting it. I love it so much. And I'm going to, yeah, definitely split for sleeves this weekend. And I might just, you know, because it'll then just be stockinette for a while. Like I might just try to finish one ball of yarn or something like that. This is this yarn you can see right here. It is Explore Knits and Fibers. I can show you the ball of yarn too. I'll just see it in all of its various forms. It's so lovely. This gives you a better idea of like the squish, because it's a little bit, you know, like the tighter wind here, but this is from the Iceland collection. I did get this at Rose City Yarn Crawl last year when they brought the solstice boxes. If you've been paying attention to EKF at all, and if you like to purchase from them, they're actually not bringing solstice to, I think, at all, to Rose City this year. They established a palette that they wanted out of other collections from last year. So there are some farmers market colors. There's one Iceland color. And then there's the elements, and they have like 6 or so variegateds and then like 10 tonals. And the tonals seem to be a rainbow they've put together from various collections that are more recent, which is pretty fun. And then there is, for the La Mercerie pop-up, they are bringing the solstice box from this year. So as you know, my friends and I split up our solstice boxes, and there's like 2 colors that I didn't get at all for me that I want on other bases. So I will be going to the pop-up. If you're gonna go, let me know. I'll be there. That's next weekend on Saturday. Okay, so this is the Iceland yarn. It is earthy DK, so it's 246 yards for 100 grams, 100% non-superwash merino. She doesn't give a micron count on here or anything, and it is not as soft, like I said, as the Coven Sisters from the Natural DK from Witchfire Fibers. They're all going to be a little bit different depending on their supplier. This has a slightly less high twist, and I have heard this yarn pills like crazy. Why I can believe that is like there are 1 or 2 places where I had to go back and fix something in this like lace section, and it was so sticky, and then it's clearly like a little bit more felted than around it. And not like it's felted, I'm gonna have an issue. It's just like the fibers, you can tell, were already wanting to lock together as soon as they were knit. And I don't care. I'm still gonna use it. I don't have that many quantities of this. I just may not purchase a ton more if I find that like I wear this and it's so pilly. I have to depill it every time. And like Katie made a dad sweater in this, and it's so soft and it's so gorgeous. And she did it in La Sagrada Familia, and it's so pretty, but it is really pilly. Like she's just said, like, wow, the first time I wore it, so pilly. So I'm putting it out there just so you know. Yes, but it is pretty soft to work with, and this color is out of this world. So I'm so excited to have it. Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. It's gonna fly off the needles. I actually was like, I'm not gonna finish it before Rose City, but like I'm 89% sure that I will. We'll see. There's a couple other things I want to cast on this week, and so we'll see what happens. I would like to cast on with my good friend Ariel. We are going to cast on a grid gambit this week. I am going to figure out what I want to do for the main color, and I kind of have to look to see what I have from De Rare Natura Ulysse. I have some scraps in my house from friends, but this is my Chasing Fireflies Wee Chickadee spin, and this is going to be my main, like my backgroundy color that goes throughout the whole grid gamut. So it's a DK weight pattern. This is a DK-ish weight spin. So I'm going to cast on at least 1 t-shirt this week, and it might be 2. If you are, and why I say that is because I have another test I signed up for. Yeah, I know, don't come at me. But I do want to do my Salty Air, and I don't want to just keep pushing it off because I have another t-shirt that it's a t-shirt that is the test knit. But I think I'm still going to cast on the Salty Air this weekend. Grid Gambit, Salty Air. Then I may or may not cast on the Coven Sisters because I do need to get this sample started. It's the checker plate sweater from Lily Kate France, and it's a sample, and I do need to get it done, but I don't think it's going to take me that long. But maybe I'll just cast it on so I have it started, and I don't have that excuse. I did wind some yarn already, so I might as well. And yeah, okay, that's all for projects. So I added I had 3 new cast-ons this week, but the mittens are already done. Socks, Blue Lagoon, super happy. Did I even say that pattern? It was up here the whole time. Is the Uptown Pullover by Toriu, and she does have an Uptown tee, and that is a fingering weight version. And I am going to use that as my next test knit payment from her, because I picked yarn that I want to use for it, and I just really love how that's coming out so much that I want to do it again. Let's talk about yarn acquisitions. I have some things to share. First of all, I have this huge, fun, beautiful bag from our friends Pearl Soho. I purchased this. This is not a gift, but it's really nice. Actually, the bag was like maybe a gift, because I got a kit as one of the things that I didn't know was going to come in the bag in the shipping, like when it shipped to me, which is so fun. Whatever, right? Oh, we talked about this last week too. This is the one skein I was waiting on from Sylvan. When we did our swapping, she did not bring her yarn to swap, and this is the only one that she didn't end up keeping, and this was for me, and this one is called Visualization. It is definitely, much purpley-er than like this, but this is also on the non-superwash. This is Squim. But it does have that like gray tone purple, so it's just one skein of Denali. Okay, what I got from Pearl Soho. I think I told you I was going to do this because I am going to make Mike, and I also want to cast this on soon, so I might cast this on this week. I don't know. You guys, these plans are crazy. Who knows? But I did this combo spin of BFL, which is about a sport weight that I got, and I am going to make him a High Lonesome, which is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter, and it's like a colorwork yoke only. Quite a lot of this yarn, so I might use the rest of it for something else. I have a darker blue skein, this more green skein, and then a lighter green skein, and I have to decide how much yardage I need. I'll wind them all up, figure out the total yardage I need for his size, and then I'll either decide to do a little gradient, like a little bit of the light, a little bit of the medium, a little bit of the dark, and I'm going to skein all of them up because I just need to know how much yardage each of them are, or I'll decide to just do most of one, probably. So that's kind of the decision. Anyway, this is called Widgeon, and this is 100% fine Falkland Merino. It is 359 yards for 100 grams. So it's a slightly lighter sport weight, but it, I think, has quite a lot of loft and will block out with some bloom because it's a non-superwash and because it's like Falkland is a type of merino, I think. So it's like got that like fluffiness to it. I really like spinning Falkland. So yeah, this is what we have. The color is called Gray Flint. It is their darkest gray, or their second darkest gray. I think the black is actually like a charcoal maybe. But this is a new-ish line for them, and it's really, really soft. And one of the knit friends had a skein of this that I felt previously that I was like, oh yeah, that's actually what I want to get for Mike's sweater. Giving him something a little softer this time around and slightly lighter weight because he's gotten like a worsted than a DK knit for me, and it runs a little hotter, so I figured I'd do that. While I was doing an order to Pearl Soho, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try out their mohair. So this is the Tussock Silk from them. It is 60% superfine kid mohair and 40% silk. This is a really interesting combo too because it's still got quite a lot of hair, but it is less mohair percentage wise than others. I want to see how that knits up because I think this is particularly interesting for things like I want to make a champagne pullover, and that's a Sorry Nordland pattern, but it's got lace going on, and I want to have the halo because that's how she did hers, and you can see it and it's really gorgeous and it's enough openness that it doesn't distract, but I don't want to use a mohair that's going to make the stitches not be defined enough. So I think this might be what I also use for that, but I want to try it in this pattern first, what pattern am I going to use it for? And again, this color is called Silver Needle, and it is, what's the yardage on here? 328 yards for 25 grams. So also lighter weight. So overall, just like lighter. I am going to use this for my, and it's super soft. Okay, I'm going to use it for my Salty Days sweater, which is a Veronica Lindbergh pattern, and her like Instagram or like her Ravelry store name is Kutovakika. And she has some really gorgeous designs, and I've never made one of her patterns, but that is one that I purchased like during a sale last year, I think. And it's been on my mind for a long time because it's what I got one of my cone yarns for. I have like a marley light gray, and I wanted this like silver halo to go with it, so that's for that. And that pattern has a lot of different, it's just mixed texture pattern with some more lace in it, so it's like a summery type pattern, and I wanted it to be this like lightweight thing with the light halo. Okay, what I really put in the Purl Soho order though, and all these things go together, is because, and I have to pull all of these out because this is the set that I purchased is even right here. So they put in a little postcard for me because this is the baby blanket that my dear friend decided to pick. I told her she could pick anything, and what I did was I pulled up, did I tell you the story already? I'm going to tell it again. I don't know. I pulled up baby blankets in general on Ravelry, and I was like, just tell me what vibe you're going for here. She likes kitschy things, so I thought she'd go for more like a granny square vibe. They are doing a gender neutral because they are not learning the sex of the baby beforehand. And so I said, like, maybe just a texture, maybe like a little bit, like maybe less of a pattern though. And I was like, just pick whatever you want and I'll get the things. She found this was like on the first page of Ravelry, and she was like, ooh, I kind of like that. It's simple. And she like flagged it and then kept looking through pages. And then she was like, honestly, I want this simple blanket. This is what I want. And I was like, girl, I love a simple blanket. A, I don't have to think about or hunt for colors for you. This is already a kit. Sign me up. B, I love these colors. They're really soothing, really fun spring colors. So here they all are. And I think this is in order. That's how I pulled them out of the bag. So I believe this is in order for the picture. And these are really her, like really her colors, just softer maybe even than normal. She loves a green, a gray, and a little bit of yellow. So I'm really excited to get this done for her. And this is their super easy blanket in morning. So they have a super easy, I think they used to call it the super easy crib blanket, but maybe it's just called the super easy blanket now. Anyway, it is garter. You do nothing but garter. It is a 100% knit blanket. There's no purling happening. There's no thinking either, because I'm pretty sure the pattern, if you look at it online, this is a free pattern for them. You can use any yarn you want. You don't have to use this yarn, but it was the colors she wanted, and I figured I wouldn't kill myself trying to find those colors otherwise. So this is also bougie blanket number 2 for the year, but she's worth it. This is, yeah, a friend that I'm here to support with these lovely things. Also, I know she'll take care of it. But you just knit, I'm pretty sure, like I'd have to look at the pattern again. Like maybe there's a number of inches, but generally speaking, it's just like until you run out of yarn. Then the next row you switch it, though you do establish a right and a wrong side row, maybe just even between your first ones, or, you know, because the cast on is going to have slightly right side, wrong side look. And you just want to like, you want to end at the end of a row. So if you end up being close, you just kind of, you know, look at that a little bit, and then you can either keep the exact same number of rows or you just knit them. Honestly, no one would ever notice if it's like one row different or whatever, but you do want the wrong side because you'll always have that like little, it just looks different. You're gonna have like the one side where the purl bumps are in between 2 colors. Okay, so this is what we'll do. Honestly, the most work of this blanket is gonna, I feel, is the biggest mental hurdle is gonna be scanning up all these yarns. But this is their morning. This is why it's called, this one's called the Sunday Super Easy Baby Blanket in Morning Piazza Palette. So this is the Piazza Palette. The colors are from green to gray here, tender green, cucumber ice, sweet apricot, yellow apple, heirloom white, grassland green, and stone cottage. So this is stone cottage, and we'll just talk about what the composition is. It is 75% organically grown cotton and 25% yak. And they are having a June baby. So this kind of light cottony blanket is really perfect for when baby is really small and they can still use it for tummy time early and for stroller time, etc. and naps. So really excited to have this and give this to her. And yeah, again, winding the yarn is going to be a real pain. It is 7 colors. So that is quite a lot of time. Obviously, I don't have to do them all at once because you do 1 color at a time. But I may, just to get it all done with. Who knows? That's my Purl Soho order. You know, I am very glad to have all of those things, and I can't wait to use them. They may all be used this year. Uncertain on the Salty Days sweater. We'll see. I feel like that would be a fun sweater to have on the needles in the summer. Okay, I got 2 things. So like I said, on Valentine's Day, my sweet husband, best Valentine ever, went with me to a couple of yarn stores. Really just one that I bought from. And so there is a yarn store here in Seattle. I might have said this the other week, is going out of business. They're in Greenwood, and the name of the store is Fabric Gallery. I went in and everything is now even a little bit more on sale, but I wanted to go. Obviously, there were more things probably in stock a few weeks ago, but I wanted to go while they had pretty good discounts, but would maybe have some inventory. So it was just the perfect day to have off. We had breakfast nearby. Then we went there. We got some fancy tea. We went, and then we went to Costco. We did some other things. Okay. But, I ended up getting something that I had yarn picked for. Okay. So my friends and I are going to do a book club cardigan cast on this year all together in the next month or so. I was going to use this, which is something I had gotten for a different project, for the Ginny cardigan, which is another cardigan by Andrea Mowry. And it's like an open belted garter rib actually pattern named for her grandma, which is so sweet. I really like that pattern, and I like it in a tweed, and that's kind of what her sample looks like. And this is what I had originally picked. This is Slate from Erin at Backloop and Yarn Co. And it is a DK. I used some of my heirloom quilt cardigan leftovers, which is the same composition, to do a swatch for the book club cardigan. And it was fine, pattern-wise, and okay, and I think would be okay in this pattern. But as I was thinking and dreaming about it a little bit more, and like hearing what my friends were going to use for their yarn, I became a little bit worried that all of that work spent on cables would stretch out over time and also not be as apparent in that yarn. And my friends, I can't face that. That much work on a cardigan specifically, no. So when we were in there, this was quite on sale. And this is my first time buying this. So first time purchase of Moda. This is a Wool Dreamers yarn. It's 100% wool. It is a non-superwash. The color doesn't have a color name. It is color 1526G. No name. Maybe if you go online, there's a name. I don't know. But it's like a really pretty dark teal color. There was a lighter teal, which is like somewhere between this and Blue Lagoon, that I was also looking at. That was pretty bright, but I was like, you know, I think I'd wear this one more. Mike helped me pick it out. He's a good guy. There was a dark raspberry color, and I was like, I can't do this because I already have purple cardigans. I need a different color. And I think I will definitely add this. Like, this is a good addition to the wardrobe. So it's 252 yards for 100 grams, but it is a worsted weight. That's what it works up as. I think the bloom on this is really nice too, similar to like a Ulysse or like a Gilead. This is going to be a little bit thinner than Gilead. So I think I'll still get the lighter drape that I wanted from the DK, but more defined and sturdy cables with this. So I got enough to do the book club of this. Then I also got enough to do a t-shirt, and I did pick a t-shirt pattern, but now it's totally escaping me, of this, and this is sport weight. It's called Mojave, and it is a, oh, I guess I didn't hold this one that close to the camera. Like, look at these two pretty tonals we got going on here. And that one also, Moda, is a 3-ply, but yeah, it's just nice and plump. Anyway, this is a Kelborn Woolens. This is my first Kelborn Woolens purchase. There's a couple of different bases from them that I would like to try over the years as I get to projects that I've thought of for those. But this one is a color raspberry. pretty similar. It's a little bit like a duller of this same color. And then it is 60% cotton, 40% linen, 185 yards for 50 grams. So it's a sport weight. It's nice, and like it's got the matte feel of the cotton, but it's not prickly. More prickly. For 40% linen is quite a lot. So we'll see how my hands feel using this. I just remember watching Amy at Knit's knit a summer top, like, gosh, that might have been 2 summers ago, but she used like the bright blue color for this. And that is when this yarn first got on my radar. And I was like, ooh, maybe I'll use it. And I can't remember if I want to say she said it did have a little bit of like slightly tougher on your hands feel, but, I'm not that sensitive. So like I want to try some more of these summer blends. We're not a super hot climate. So like I can wear, like merino or wool throughout the summer, but it's nice to have t-shirts, not just tank tops, in some of these summer blends, so I can wear them on the hottest days and still just get to wear my handmade wardrobe all year round. So yeah, that's this Mojave, and I got enough for a t-shirt, and I did look up a pattern, and I just really don't know. I put it in a note somewhere, but my phone is in use right now. That's all my acquisitions. That was a lot of stuff this week. Oh, I do want to talk about spinning. This is my first braid is done. And it's so cute. Super lovely. Again, this is one of a kind, but I don't remember the color is called, but the Trisha has this. This is on Yarn Jam. Shaniko base. It is what Tori Yu used for her Curiosity hat. So like, these are the prototypes before, or maybe oopsies. So they're a little bit different. Like the second one I have has more red than this. And I think that the one that she ended up having is like a kind of more equal colors of all of them. And this one is probably pretty close to what the final outcome was like. But again, I purchased these when she was having a kind of holiday sale, getting rid of some of her one-of-a-kind stuff. And it's so squishy and nice. I have not rewound this bobbin yet, but when I'm done the second one, I will just rewind both of them and then and apply them together. So I'll have 2, hopefully fingering light sport weight skeins of yarn, and I will figure out what to do with them after that. But I love this color. I think it's gonna be so fun to apply up. Again, I did this in 4 splits. No, I did this one in thirds, and I split the second bobbin into, I think, 8, but I put them in a little bag, so now I can't remember. I'll tell you when I'm done, what I end up actually doing. Yeah. So fun. Let's go to books. Okay, first thing I'm going to talk about is not the first thing I finished, because I have it's a whole other thing I'm going to talk about for a second. But I finished What's Out, and I thought this was a complete trilogy. It is not. The Witch Walker series. There are 3 books out, but the third one is really a novella, but it's like a book. I think she's calling it a novella because it kind of follows side characters, though it's in the timeline of the rest of the books. Like, so I can't tell you what happens in the second one, why there's not the main character back, but anyway. It's an important part to establish what will happen next, but through side characters, not the main characters. I guess that's really all I have to say. So the second book is called City of Ruin, and that's the place that they're trying to go during that whole second book. And again, this is like a magical land where the witches are called Witch Walkers. It's a Witch Walker series, and by Charissa Weeks. And the Witch Walkers are they sing magic, and the main character cannot speak, but she can sign, so she signs magic, and it works that way for her. And then there are like gods of the land, though in the very beginning the narrator again is from a sheltered village, and she says all the gods are dead, and then you realize it's a little more complicated than that. And there's some other types of sorcerers that are in the land that you learn about, and the gods also have powers and are not quite as dead as we once had thought. And so it's pretty exciting what's happening anyway. So they're trying to go to the City of Ruins, and the main characters like learn a little bit more about their past and each other, and there's a lot of like angst. All these angsty books. I really liked the second book though. And I actually really liked the side character's perspective. It gave me very Court of Silver Flames vibes, which is the ACOTAR book 4, 5. I think that City of Lights or Starlight or whatever is 3.5. So I think it's 4. But anyway, that's like the Nesta book, and it's very like side characters that are very steamy. So that one's pretty steamy. And it's called The Wolf and the Witch. And I won't tell you much about who those side characters are because it's a bit of a surprise, but it's really good. It's really good. I actually really, really like that. Sometimes you don't know if you're going to like to follow other characters' perspectives, but I think they did a good enough job establishing both this relationship and tension and the characters as multidimensional, not just as like one note side characters, that it made sense for them to be the next characters that you follow. I think we'll go back to the main characters for the third book, like the non-novella fourth book, but it will be, yeah, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I really liked those. It's not a finished series, so I can't like tell you 100% endorsement, but if you like the idea of any of those things, you like a romantasy, this is a really good one. I would say go for it. Okay, I finished the last of that's out of the Kelsie Haas Hello series, and so this is 8, and it was Hello Quarterback. And this one makes sense. Again, that name makes tons of sense. And one of the brothers of the Madigan family is the professional quarterback in Texas. And it's about him sort of finding the balance. Like, can he find love and still prioritize his career? And then the girl who ends up being the love interest also has that worry of someone who's trying to like put her in a box and not let her be an established and very successful career woman, but like be more, nurturing or whatever the things are that people expect. And yeah, it's them kind of figuring that out. And there's some fake dating that happens, but that's like really just such a flimsy foil for this that like I hesitate to even call it that. But yeah, it was goodish. These characters were like, okay, maybe I just don't relate to them as much, and it was fine. One thing I will say I did like about this is sometimes these professional athlete books, which I love, it's a genre that I love in the romance world, they just make it seem like they only go to the training facility for a little bit, or like they get to set their own hours or whatever. And I don't have any friends, like no very close personal, anybody who is a professional athlete. But I call BS on the fact that they won't be at the training facility or busy for very much of their days. Actually, 2 of the books that I read are professional athletes this week. And this one is like this, where they really do talk about like his training schedule is arduous. He is there a lot for a long time. His days are busy. They don't get to meet up all the time. Like, he doesn't just have all the evenings free. He can't travel freely whenever he wants to whatever games. Like the Amy Award books that are like the brothers that are all on the same football team, those ones make it seem like, oh, like we just took our personal jet to the game. And I was like, BS. I don't buy it. But yeah, so anyway, I thought that was a pretty fun, like, little thing that I was like, it's already unrealistic maybe, but maybe it is realistic. I mean, obviously these professional athletes fall in love with somebody, so like, why not whoever these authors are writing about? But like, make their lives seem intense. Like, it's a very intense, very hard thing that they're doing. Anyway. So that brings me to the last book I finished this week, which was a book called Close Knit. This book is written by, it's the Hastings #1, and I think it's the only one that's out from the Hastings series. But it's a book that's written by Kels Stone. And Kels Stone is actually a duo. It's like Denise Stone and Kelsie something, I think, that write together. So similar to Christina Lauren. I have some issues with how they wrote. This is my first Kels Stone book. I'm not going to just like, I'm going to leave this in a more positive light. I don't think I'll probably read anything else from them. The reason I picked this up is because I was just like looking through books about knitters. Okay, I don't know if I found like a Reddit thread or something, but anyway, this one came up. And this book is very much like the main girl. It's kind of a Grumpy Sunshine romance book. So that's like the trope. And like a forced proximity Grumpy Sunshine. It's about there's the other trope is it's a one night stand becomes friends. So this is about a knitting influencer. Okay, so let's start there. Who has her first one night stand in her year of yes, where she just wants to say yes to a bunch of things. She's going to put herself out there, and she has some anxiety and like put herself in situations that are hard. And she meets a very charming and lovely Premier League soccer player who is a U.S. soccer player. There are not actually a lot of them in the Premier League. There are some, but he knows it's a big deal, and he is at home in San Francisco when they meet, and then incidentally, they become next door neighbors when they are both in London. Okay, it's a little far-fetched how that happens, and there is definitely some housing that Premier League teams will have established for young players when they first come over, especially international players, because a lot of times they bring family with them and they need somewhere to go before they purchase. But these players are making many millions of pounds. They are going to buy their own house. So part of this is that they live in like a co-op together, the young players who don't have families essentially. Maybe some of them do, but I don't think this is this common. And if you watch anything like about Premier League players, or you watch Premier League and know any of the things, which my husband and I both do, and we've watched like All or Nothing seasons, yeah, they have houses, even the young ones. Okay. Then, so there's like some things for me. I think here's a big piece of what bugged me while reading this is there are a couple of writing style things I didn't love very much. And some of that was pacing. And some of that was, and the pacing just being like a little bit erratic, which it happens. That's not, a lot of authors suffer with this problem, especially when you're establishing a relationship that has multiple ups and downs, which I think is more realistic than like everything is perfect and then we crash and burn and then we're together. I think there's going to be these things that happen. And so it happens for this. And I think that was actually like a nice realistic thing. But the pacing was a little bit sketch. The writing thing I didn't love also was that there was a lot of exaggerated moments where part of this Grumpy Sunshine is that like she's bringing him out of his shell and making him more fun. But I felt like it was like cheesy, a little bit too cheesy in writing some of those moments. So it just brought me out of it because I was like, ugh, that feels like so juvenile. Yeah. Like there's one scene where she goes to dinner and meets his family, and there are like 6 winks thrown at her in a matter of 3 or 4 pages. And that was like also like, that's like the cheesy. I was like, oh gosh, that's so uncomfortable. And I'm not a person who hates winks, well-timed winks, but this one too much. And then there's just some things, if you're a writing duo, you have twice the capacity to do some research. You knew I was going to bring this up with a knitter. I actually think one of the things that bugged me the most and brought me out of the story so much is that they make one of the devices for her meeting the family is during the holidays. And she just like writes that he goes home. Guess what? If you do even 1 second of research on a Premier League season, they don't go home at Christmas. There is no Christmas break. They're called holiday fixtures, and there's like a slew of games that happen in that week where people have off so they can get more games in because there's often breaks for friendlies and stuff throughout the season, which means that they like play internationally or like international competitions, or sometimes like things like they break in even the years that there aren't qualifiers for World Cups. That's why there would be like more friendlies or other international competitions, because that's already going to happen where there's weeks where they do qualifying games, and a lot of Premier League players are playing for their World Cup teams and things, or their national teams. And so they would have these weeks that are off. So those weeks happen also during regular seasons. So they have these holiday fixtures where they add in a couple extra just Premier League games during that season, during that time period. So that's a very easy thing to research. And I was just like, I mean, it didn't matter, right? It's just a device, but they could have just done the 5 seconds of research and then used another way to get him home. He could have had a friendlies or like a national team match. He for sure, any Premier League player who's a US citizen would be on the US national team. So they could have just used that. No, did not. Okay. Slightly bothersome. The other thing is they made this big deal about bullying inside of sports, which I agree is definitely a thing. And this like kind of hypermasculinity issue of not being able to have like, and like mental health within the sports world. And I agree that's probably an issue across all of them. But I do know that most Premier League teams already have a team psychologist. So like there is a part of this where it's like they're establishing it. Okay, fine, whatever. Give them that device. That's fine. The other thing that maybe that bugged me definitely was some knitting things. These authors, I'm going to say, are not knitters. And I say that mostly because even though it was like, there are a couple of times that this happens from the man's perspective, like the male, the non-knitter perspective, they definitely interchange crochet and knit for some of the things that they're talking about for Daphne's creations in a way that really bugs me. Like, obviously, just pick one of them. They are not interchangeable. They're not going to be both happening. Sometimes both happen in garments, but like in the situations they talked about, it's going to be one or the other. Just pick one and keep with it. Like in a matter of one page, it was like knit thing, crochet thing, knit thing, talking about the same object. And I was like, nope, incorrect. The other thing is that Daphne's a knitting influencer, and I really feel like these authors went and watched one or like read one subreddit, a Reddit thing about Knitty Natty and then like petite knit patterns. And that's all. And it's really bothersome because there is so much more complexity to the world of creating knitting patterns, putting out knitting patterns, and being a knitting influencer. And they just make things like seem really, really easy. And it's just like, maybe because I have a YouTube, podcast and very few followers. I mean, I love y'all. Thanks for being here. But like, I have less than 2,000 followers and I have 80 videos out, and that's okay. I'm not trying to have a huge giant base, and I'm also not trying to monetize my channel. When you try to monetize, I think sometimes you bring more people in because of certain ad revenue, and the things that you specifically talk about maybe are like more mainstream. And I like that I talk about a variety of designers, variety of yarns, and I'm not getting paid to talk about any of it. Okay. And that's part of it, is like sponsorships, but they make it seem like it's really easy to just get all these sponsorships. And she at one point does a knitting retreat, and then within 6 months has done tons of knitting retreats and does them all over the world. And I was like, no, that's not how that's going to work. Okay. Another thing that really bugged me, you guys, I'm nitpicking a little bit, but like, I'm a knitter, and it just like drove me nuts. One of the things they talk about is like, she takes a social media break. Great for her mental health. Do it. I think everybody should do the cleanse if they want to. This is a great thing, even if this is a big part of your base and that's a little bit scary. But she's like, okay, she had some and you can totally do this. You can have scheduled things, especially if you use apps outside of Instagram to like put up posts. But then she says like, I wasn't doing anything other than posting patterns. Like, she took 6 weeks off. And if you're not on Instagram, and like there's no talk about tech editing or test knitting her patterns or anything like that. She just puts out patterns, and the way they make it seems like multiple a week. And I was like, no, also no. Or not well done. Or like, and I think they even talk about her first pattern has like 500 sales. I know small pattern designers. That's a lot of sales for a pattern. That is not something you're going to have in your first pattern very quickly, unless something amazing happens for you, right? And so it's just this kind of like unrealistic piece that they're putting in. And I get like part of it is because they want like the media attention as a piece of this. And like, it's just, it seems like they did no research for like what actually happens for a lot of knitting things. They just like loosely talk about, they looked up a couple of knitting terms and they looked at one Reddit post, and I was like, oh, that's annoying. Like, you could have just talked to a knitter like a little bit to be like, is this realistic? No. Okay. That's all I have to say about it. Not actually for the knitting things bothering me, or even the Premier League things bothering me about not reading again. It's a little bit more the writing style that's not really for me for them. So it's a little bit sweet. There is definitely some spicy scenes, but it's more sweet than spicy, though the very beginning of this is spicy. So I was like, oh, but then there's not a lot. There's very few close or open door scenes. So that's books for you. And then I don't really have like a knitting topic or tip of the week this week, which is fine. If you guys have any more or other things you want to talk about, send them to me below here. But I will tell you 2 things I'm going to do. So I told you some of my knitting plans that I'm going to cast on this week. So what I will say is 2 topics I want to talk about, or I'm going to show you questions I've been posed and I have not answered. Actually, there's 3 coming in the very near future. One I have to do a little bit more work on, and that's like ergonomics and stretching for knitting. Ask me below if you have any specific questions about that. But I did talk to the knitting PT, Andrea, when I saw her actually at Sacred Sheep in November. And so I've got some questions I can pose to her, but I would like any more from you. And she said she'd send me some DMs and give me some suggestions so I can talk you through some ergonomic things and best practices for knitting and stretching and taking care of your body. The second thing I'm going to talk about is how I store my knits, which is not going to be a way a lot of people can or would store their knits, but I will still show you what I do for storage. And then the third thing is my knitting planner. You guys, this is the one I'm really excited about. And I still have a little bit to do on it, but I am tracking all the things that I have. I don't know my threshold. Right now, it's about 700 or 800 yards is like what I'm going to call like a t-shirt quantity. So some of those things I can do tank tops, but I don't want to just have picked out a ton of tank tops. Sometimes it's like mixes that I'm going to use in the future. So if I have 1 or 2 skeins, they might just not be accounted for in the knitting tracker thing. But for most of the things that I have 2 skeins or more, I have plans. I'm not right now, it's all garments. So there are some things that I need to put the plans in for because they are shawls, and I'm happy to do that. I'm just like, that's the next phase for me to get this so I can get 80% of this is my goal by the end of the month, 80% of my sweater type quantities or large quantities of yarn, 800 yards and above, designated to projects. And I'm not stuck in those projects, right? But then it's an easy way for me, and I'm going through, now what I'm doing is getting those into my tracker too. So that's like an easy way for me to actually tell this is 80%. Part of this is then also being able to look at and put in priority so that I can easily be like, what do I want to cast on, and do less of the shiny object syndrome. And so this has been fun. It's been really fun to do and make, and it's huge. And I will show you on screen, like it'll be totally over my face next week because I will be done. So that's what's coming, and that's what you need to know. Now I would love to know, what are you knitting on? What was your knitting chore this week that you did, or what have you been working on? Again, ergonomic questions. I'd really like to know those because I want to be as specific as I can for Andrea to answer some stuff for us. And she so graciously said she would. And also they can just be like particularly for me, what do I do? And I can share that too, to kind of keep my body healthy because I do knit a lot and I do stretch a lot. So yeah, I'd like to talk about that. And then yeah, just I want to know what you're working on. Are you excited? Spring is in the air here, as in hopefully no more snow, but like it's a little bit warmer. We're in our 40s here, which is more normal for us, and lots of rain. And I'm into the rain. It's good for us. It's good for everything around here. But yeah, so tell me those things, share. Do you have any questions about the knits or anything? As always, likes are much appreciated. Subscribe to the channel. Find me on Instagram and join our Discord. We are doing our Discord chat this Saturday at 1 p.m. I think it's 1 p.m. Pacific. So if you join the Discord, you'll see it there. And I did make a note. This is 1 p.m. Pacific. Discord doesn't do a great job of showing time zones and stuff. So at 1 p.m. Pacific, we'll just jump on our video call on Discord. It's a free platform for anybody to join. It's very fun. We chat about things. Bring your yarn. I'm going to have a coffee with me also. And yeah, it'll be really fun. So I'll see you there, hopefully. Otherwise, I'll see you in comments below or on Instagram. And I hope you are having a wonderful day, night, weekend, whenever you're watching this. I'll talk to you soon.